Hello BookTube, Sarah here, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reads for January 13th, 2018. Take two. I actually have to keep track of, if you see me at times, like I'll finish talking about something and I'll kind of glance down. I'm looking at the time on my phone, like how long I've been recording, because for editing purposes, when I'm putting the pictures in, I can only do 10 minutes at a time, and then I edit it all together. It's really not that difficult, but because of trying to save the files, I can't go longer than 10 minutes. It's some weird whatever with the program. And I glanced down, like I got through talking about the whole first book I was talking about, and I glanced down and noticed that I actually wasn't recording. So let's try this again. To start off with, let me talk about what is in my mug, in my Cat Mom mug. I actually got these as a set. I think it was like last year at Hallmark or something like that. But the other one says Cat Dad. My hubby and I love our cats. He's got children, so I have stepchildren. They are older. You know, we personally don't have kids between us, but we have our cats and we adore them. So, you know, we have to have mugs that tell us so. I'm drinking another hot chocolate today because it is still really chilly out. It did get warm last week for a bit and was a really mean tease. It felt almost spring-like. All the snow that we had melted and everything, and then yesterday it was raining when I left for work, and then the temperature dropped severely, and by the time I left work at the end of the day, I had to chip off like a half an inch of ice off my car. So that was unpleasant. But yeah, it's winter, it's Canada, it is what it is. So the hot chocolate that I'm drinking today is a Rolo hot chocolate, and I like it. It's yummy, but I don't taste Rolo. Do you know what I mean? It just tastes like a yummy hot chocolate. So, you know, I'm enjoying it. It's, like I said, it's good. It's drinkable, definitely. The other thing I wanted to show you guys before I got into talking about all the books, so I don't forget, is Christine from Caisey Reads. She has a YouTube channel. I will link it in the description box below. She actually also has an Etsy shop, and she sells the most adorable little clips. Her shop is called Caisey's Clips, I think. And I was watching one of her videos. I'm a little behind, but she was mentioning them and she was showing them, and I'm like, I forgot I wanted to order from her. And she is in Canada. She's north of where I live, and I decided to buy 2 of them. But I want to show you because they are meant to be. I think she labels them as like planner clips, but as soon as I saw them, I thought bookmarks. So I'll show you the one that I'm trying to hold the book here so I don't drop it. So that's what the one clip that I bought looks like. It is, of course, a witch's hat, and I absolutely love it because I love Halloween. And then I got this one because I love Starbucks, and this totally reminded me of the unicorn frap that was out last summer. How adorable is that, you guys? Oh my gosh. So I just want to show you for a book. So, for example, I'm reading this very sexy cowboy book, for example. And I need to mark my page. So it's just a paper clip on the back, which is awesome. And, you know, you just put it through. Come on. I just want to show you guys what it looks like as a bookmark. And then there's my bookmark. Isn't that adorable? They are so reasonably priced, and her shipping is amazing. I absolutely love it. Like, come on. How stinking adorable is that as a bookmark? So that's why I bought them for me. Even though I don't read a lot of physical books, it'll still be super cute to use. And the cool thing is, too, is that the way she has the clips going is that you could turn it sideways. So you could put it in this way, too, if you wanted to. But yeah, I just wanted to show those off. So go check out her shop because it's awesome. And like I said, absolutely reasonable for shipping and the prices and stuff like that. There were so many of them. I was looking at them going, oh, I want to buy this for my friend. I want to buy this for my friend. So I might have to buy some maybe during the year to put towards Christmas presents for some of my friends. So anyway, so all that being said, let's jump into the books. So the very first book that I finished this week was The Cat Who Turned On and Off by Lilian Jackson Braun. This is the 3rd book in the Cat Who mystery series, and it has an average rate, or I gave it a star rating of 3.5 stars, has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.93 stars. And I got 2 challenges completed out of this one. The first one is the RRC monthly challenge for January. Category number 10, which was Reader's Choice. Read any book of your choosing. And the second one was the By the Numbers quarterly challenge. I actually got 7 words completed out of this one. This is my first of the 7-word block. So I have to look for some longer titled books. Anyway, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this series, I consider it personally, I mean, aside from Agatha Christie, it is one of the very first cozy mysteries series ever. This book in particular was published in 1968, I believe, so it's quite old. The first half a dozen, maybe 10 books were published in the 1960s, and then the author actually took a hiatus for like 20 years, and then she came back and finished writing the series. So it is about a man by the name of Jim Quillerin, and he is owned by two cats named Coco and Yum Yum. Anyone who else is a cat who has cats knows that we don't own them, they own us. But they are two very highly intelligent Siamese cats, and essentially the three of them solve mysteries. So this book takes place at Christmas time, which I didn't realize going into the book, but that's fine. Those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, especially over December, know I can't read Christmas books unless it's Christmas time, which is why in December all I read were Christmas books. But for this one, the Christmas season was more a part of the setting as opposed to part of the plot. You could have stuck it in any time period and it still would have worked, if that makes sense. It was really cute. It was, he's been now put on a new beat to write stories about this place called Junktown, which is in the big city that they live in. Now, the city is never named, but you'd almost think it's around the Chicago area from the way it's described. And so I tend to think of Chicago when I think of this book or think of where this book takes place. And it's this small rundown community, like town within the city, if you will. And they are specialized in antiques. And he doesn't know anything about antiques. He doesn't like antiques, but he's sent there to kind of like write stories about, you know, for the newspaper articles. And then, of course, somebody had been murdered, and he starts to investigate, and then somebody else gets murdered. And, of course, he finds himself right in the thick of it, which is usually the way it goes with cozy mysteries. It's a really, really cute story. Again, published in 1968, so it's very clean. There is no foul language. There is no adult content. It's great. It's really well written. You got to take it with a grain of salt in some cases, though, because of the time period it was written in. And you got to remember that it's not modern day. And, you know, it's so quaint and charming. I just absolutely love this series. I read this whole series years and years ago. It was my first foray, I cannot say that word, into more adult literature. I'm a child of the 1980s. I was born in 79. So I grew up reading The Babysitter's Club, of course, Sweet Valley High, Nancy Drew. And, you know, like that was kind of my bread and butter. And then I got to my late teens, and I was shopping with my mom in the bookstore, and I commented that I was kind of over, you know, a lot of what I was reading, and I was looking for something new. I read a lot of V.C. Andrews, some Anne Rice, and my mom had read this series, and she handed me one of the books in the store, and she's encouraged me to buy it, and I did. And so, like I said, that was like one of my first, I mean, I guess you would consider Anne Rice to be more adult literature, and if you consider Anne Rice, I mean, Anne Rice is a good author. And V.C. Andrews as well. I mean, that's, you know, some of the stuff that happens in there is very adult. But they're still written for a younger audience, I feel, V.C. Andrews. I think she sometimes gets pegged as YA. I don't think I 100% agree with that, but that's an entire another topic for another day. But yeah, so I really, really like this series. I highly encourage you to try it out. Like I said, quaint, charming, and fun, and especially if you like cats. So as I've been doing, I've been reading like the first little paragraph to you guys, so I will do that now. In December, the weather declared war. First it bombarded the city with ice storms, then with freezing winds. Now it was snowing belligerently, a blizzard whipping down Canal Street past the Press Club, as if it had a particular grudge against newspapermen. With malicious accuracy, the largest flakes zeroed in to make cold, wet landings on the neck of the man who was hailing a taxi in front of the club. So that's the opening of that book. Like I said, really enjoy it. Definitely check that series out. The second book I finished this week was Royally Matched by Emma Chase. This is book number 2 in the Royally series. It was narrated on audio by Shane East and Andy Arnett. I gave this book 4 stars, and it has an average rating of 4.17 stars on Goodreads. I got 2 challenges completed out of this one. Again, the Triple RC challenge for January, category number 6, which was Male Watchers Day. Based on that cover, you had to read a book with a gentleman on the cover showing off some of his body. And then for the By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge, this one was for 2 words. This is the story of Henry and Sarah. Henry is Nicholas's brother, younger brother. Nicholas was the lead character in the first book, Royally Screwed, which I read late last year. This is I believe they classify this to be a new adult romance. And I like the series. I like the writing. The narration on this is fantastic. It's really, really good. I wasn't as impressed with the narration for this book as I was for the first book because it's the same 2 narrators. And both the brothers are, of course, they come from this small country called Westco, but in my mind, it's Great Britain. And the lead narrator, the male narrator, has an English accent. And it's phenomenal for both the brothers. It's very, very upper class. It's very, very well done. I mean, it's the way he speaks. He's not putting on an accent. Do you know what I mean? And he does a good American accent, too, when he's talking for the American characters. But in the first book, Nicholas's love interest, and I cannot remember her name, I want to say it's Olivia, she's American. And Andy Arnett, she is American, so it worked out well. It's the same narrator for this one, but Sarah, the lead female in this story, she is from Westco, so she has that accent. And it just felt forced to me. I think it would have been nice if they could have brought in a British narrator to do it, but maybe that's just me. That part of it I liked. So essentially this story is about Henry, and I don't want to give away too much of the plot of the first book because it factors into this one. But he's got a lot of responsibility now on his shoulders, and he doesn't know how to handle it. He was the younger son, the wild child, the, drinking, partying, getting his picture plastered all over social media with various women. And his grandmother, who's the Queen of Westco, is pretty much saying, maybe you need to take some time off and, think things through. So while he's doing that, he is approached by this woman to star in a television series. Think of The Bachelor, but it's called Matched. And they essentially want to do a royal edition. And, with him being a prince and all that. So, the story kind of goes from there, but all these upper crust women in this country, all these ladies and stuff like that, are the ones who are vying for his attention and affection, if you will. And it's a fun story. I gave it 4 stars. I really, really liked it. My few issues with it were the amount of swearing, for one. I really don't think it's needed that much. Swearing doesn't bother me. I can sound like a sailor on a good day. I like me some swear words. They are warranted at times. But I just felt it was overdone. The other thing was the adult content. This is heavy, heavy, heavy in adult content. And again, I don't think that much of it was needed. And it wasn't just the actual acts itself and when that was happening. That actually didn't start really happening until about 3/4 of the way through the book, and then it was frequent. But even leading up to it, that's all he talked about. And I found the same thing with the first book, and I felt it to be very overdone. To the point where I was rolling my eyes going, yeah, that's what you're thinking, blah, blah, blah. It got to be a little much. But it didn't bother me enough to take the star rating down. I still really enjoyed the book. And saying all that, like I said, I do like reading the little first paragraph to you guys. I'm going to leave a line out of this because A, there's a swear word, and B, I don't think it's required. So let's jump in. This is how it starts. Balls. I sliced it. At least I think that's the correct term. Spliced, diced, minced. I'm not sure. I was never a fan of golf. It's too slow, too quiet, too bloody boring. Football is more my game. Or rugby. Full body contact. Polo is all right too. Hell, at this point, I'd settle for an energetic Quidditch match. That's the one thing in this book too, is that novels, not only like obviously Harry Potter is referenced there, but Sarah, the lead female, she's a librarian, and she references like Jane Austen and all these classic books of literature and stuff like that. And for those of you, obviously we're bookish people. If you're watching this channel, you might really get a kick out of that too. So the next book that I finished was Ruthless by Anne Stuart. This was the first book in the House of Rowan series. This was narrated on audio by Susan Erickson. I give this book 3.5 stars, and it has an average rating of 3.81 stars on Goodreads. I got 3 challenges completed out of this one. Another triple RC challenge, number 8, was Opposites Day, which was a friends to, not a friends to, an enemies to lovers story. The next one was, of course, the By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge for 1 word, which was great. And the last was the A to Z Locations Challenge for the letter P for Paris, because this book takes place almost exclusively in Paris, France. It's the late 1700s. This is a historical romance novel. And essentially it's about a woman who is, they're living in poverty. Her mother, her sister, and they do keep a coachman, even though they don't have a coach, and her nanny or governess or whatever. She kind of is helping take care of the family. Well, Eleanor is the main character's name. Her mother has, I guess they're calling it the British disease, the French disease, the Spanish disease. I believe it's syphilis from the sounds of it and from how she contracted it. This story is very, very dark. Very dark. It was also very adult. Talking about situations that are not the norm when it comes to adult behavior, quote unquote. Rowan, essentially the gentleman of the story, he's a viscount, and he has a club. He's known around Paris as the Master of Hell or the King of Hell or something like that. He runs this house that's very exclusive membership, like it's a club. And these people can come in and, you know, gamble and drink and do things that, again, are not the norm. I have a very difficult time describing it because I had a very difficult time listening to it in some cases. It's not constant, but characters will mention things in passing that, you know, made me shudder just a little bit. It wasn't overly descriptive, but for example, like, you know, it's adult situations between 2 consenting adults. I think you all know where I'm going here. And children are mentioned. Like, you know, the younger the better, essentially, which just, it's not with the main character himself. Like, that's not, it's the other people of this club. Some of them, that's the kind of behavior that they're into, which I do not agree with or condone in any way, shape, or form. And Eleanor, right from the beginning, doesn't like him. They meet because her mother has taken off and spent the last bit of money that they had gambling at this club. And, you know, he comes to bring the mother home and sees how they're living and, you know, decides to kind of take pity and starts offering his help and giving them money for food and giving them food and firewood and things like this. And then she feels indebted to him, and, you know, their relationship, though, doesn't even really happen until the very end. And what really bothered me in this book, I did give it 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. It was very, very well written. I just didn't care, and I didn't understand the motivation between the 2 characters. Like, I understand why she didn't like him because of, you know, his the way he's perceived in society and, you know, things like that. But he didn't do anything personally to her. You know, it's like, it's not like he's somebody that you didn't meet. You know, you might dislike them, but she has an overall hate for this guy. And I still, after finishing the book, still can't figure out why. He kept threatening to go after her sister. Now, her sister was a little bit younger than her. I think the sister was like 19. She was an adult. You know, the sister can make her own choices, but Lydia is the sister's name. But Eleanor was just like, you know, wanted to keep hold of her like a vice grip because Eleanor was so beautiful, or not Eleanor, Lydia was so beautiful, and so this, and she perceived her sister to be naive. Her sister was not naive. Eleanor was not as attractive and stuff like this. You know, a lot of action happens in this book. There's a great little mystery aspect to it, where there was an inheritance that Eleanor didn't get, and you got to find out who it is, who actually, like, who she's related to, and who got this inheritance. It's a lot going on. What I really did enjoy about this book, and I think what took it, originally I had this at like a 3-star, but what jumped it up to a 3.5 was the narration. The narrator was British, but did an absolutely fabulous French accent. When she would talk in French terms and say monsieur or wherever, I cannot speak a lick of French, in Paris and in different places and cities, and I mean, it was so beautiful and lyrical. It really, the narration on this story was on par, and I really enjoyed that of it. I do plan on continuing on with the series. Again, it wasn't that I disliked the writing or anything like that. The characters' motivations and some of the things that happened I didn't enjoy. The rest of the books take place in this same, like, club, if you will. So if some of the aspects of it carry over... Now, again, some of the things I talked about, don't think that it actually happens. It's mentioned in passing by other characters. You know what I mean? I just want to let you guys know that that's the situation. But, you know, it is what it is. I liked it, and I'm glad I finally got around to reading it, because it has been on my TBR. I mean, on Goodreads, but I mean, even well before this, I owned a copy of this book years ago, and I never did get to it. So I'm glad I finally did. So, again, I will read the opening paragraph. Paris, 1768. The visit with the lawyer had not gone well. Eleanor Harriman arrived home just as her sister Lydia had finished dealing with their landlord, and she ducked out of sight so the old leecher wouldn't see her. Monsieur Picot had no patience for either her or her mother, but her baby sister was a different matter. All Lydia had to do was let tears fill her limpid blue eyes and make her cupid's bow mouth tremble, and Mr. Picot was destroyed, awash with apologies and assurances. He didn't realize he was being played until the door was firmly closed behind him, and Eleanor could sneak up the stairs, grateful that she hadn't had to defend Lydia's honor if Mr. Picot got carried away. So, you know, right from the beginning you can see that, obviously, Eleanor, all she does is look after her younger sister. And the last book that I finished this week is shaping up to quite possibly be my favorite book of the month. And that was The Hostage by Susan Wiggs. This is the first book in the Chicago Fire trilogy. I give this book 4.5 stars. It has an average rating of 3.88 stars on Goodreads. I got 2 challenges completed out of this one. The A to Z location challenge for C for Chicago, Illinois. And the Pick It For Me challenge. This was the TBR pick. This was on my TBR that my picky picked for me. I adored this book so much. This truly was like an epic saga. It was 400 pages, I think, and I flew through it. Like, it took me about 5 days to read, but still, it's one of those books that I picked it up and I didn't want to put it down, but I'm like, I've got to get to bed, or I've got to get to work, or, you know, I'm done my break, I really got to put the book down, that kind of thing. So essentially it starts off with the 3 friends, which is Deborah, which is the character in this story. Lucy and Catherine take the other 2 stories. And essentially it all starts the night of the Chicago fire on October 8th. What's the date? 1871. And the 3 friends are pretty much split up because of this fire. And then their each individual stories branch off from there. So like I said, this is Deborah's. There's a man by the name of Tom Silver who has blood, who's out for blood with Deborah's father. He feels he was responsible for a tragic accident that took the life of his adopted son, and he pretty much wants him dead. And he doesn't realize, obviously, that this fire is going to happen. Shows up, and the fire has already broken out in Chicago. It's coming to the area, the very affluent area. She's an heiress. Probably the richest man in Chicago is her father. And, you know, Tom Silver's coming in to kill the father. And things happen, and he ends up taking Deborah as a hostage, which the story goes from there. And what's really interesting about this was the geography and the history and stuff like that. The story between the romance, because this is classified as a romance, it's obviously historical, between Deborah and Tom was very, very slow burn. And I am very grateful that the author did that, because it could have turned into a Stockholm Syndrome situation. So he takes her and they board a boat, and essentially they travel through the Great Lakes up just north of Thunder Bay in Lake Superior to a place called Isle Royale. And it's a place, I looked it up on a map, and it's like this huge island up near the north part of Lake Superior. I think it's Lake Superior. And essentially there's nothing else on this island. There's a few settlements and some logging camps and things like that. But he pretty much holds her there, and then the winter comes and they have to leave the island because you can't live through the winter on this island. You're essentially cut off from civilization because the lake freezes, and one thing leads to another, and they both end up getting stuck on this island in the wintertime. So then they're stuck together in this cabin, and then that's where the romance comes out. But all these things take place from October, and so the story begins in October and doesn't end till like the spring, which is like April. So it's a long drawn out period, and the two of them hate each other. For like the first third to half of the book, they can't even stand looking at each other. And, you know, I thought the romance part of it was very well done. My issue with it, why it didn't get 5 stars, is it was such an epic story. And, you know, there's so much of the story takes place about the fire. And then so much about their travels on this boat through the Great Lakes up to this island. And then a good chunk of the book on the island. And then a good chunk of the book in the winter. So it's actually written, I think, in 3 parts. But the actual romance and relationship between Deborah and Tom was like this. It's like it happened over the course of 3 chapters, like the last 3 chapters of the book. So if you're reading this going in thinking it's going to be some sweeping love story, it's not. It's an epic saga about survival and, you know, stuff like that. And it was so, so good. And this cover, I love this cover so much. It was so funny. I was mentioning it to a friend of mine. They're like, well, yeah, it's pretty. It's like a girl in a pretty dress. And I'm like, I think the reason I love it so much is I want to wear that dress. I just want to put it on once. I mean, I would have loved to have been that model and be like, today you're wearing this for a okay. That would have made me super duper happy. I don't know what it is. I just think it's stunning. The coloring and all that, it's just a beautiful cover. So anyway, let me read you the opening paragraph. Chicago, 8th of October, 1871. It was the hottest day. It was the hottest October anyone could remember. Less than an inch of rain had fallen in 3 months. Livestock died of thirst, their bloated carcasses splayed beside sun-baked mud holes. The unseasonable warmth made women regard baking day with special loathing and small children cranky with the prickly heat. Laboring men paused in their work, looked up to the sky, and remarked to each other that they'd surely welcome a breath of winter. Oh, so good, guys. It was so, so good. If you like historical romance, or if you like historical novels, I go with even with historical fiction because, again, the romance aspect of this was just a very small part of it. And when you do get to those, that part, it's very, very tame, extremely tame. Susan Wiggs is not a graphic adult content writer. And yeah, so good. And there's 2 other books. Again, this is a trilogy, and I'm looking forward to reading the other 2 for sure. So, what am I currently reading? Well, I went from a lot of historical last week to Cowboy contemporary, which is always fun. I think that should be its own genre, Cowboy contemporary romance. So the first one, my audiobook, is Red's Hot Cowboy by Carolyn Braun. This is book number 2 in the Spikes and Spurs series, and this is narrated on audio by Anne-Marie Lee. Essentially, this is the story of Pearl, and she is good friends of the girl from the first book, whose name I cannot remember because I read it early last year. But the first book was called a name I can't remember. Love Drunk Cowboy. That was the first book. And, you know, essentially she's friends with the main character, so this is why it's part of the same series. And this book starts off on Christmas Eve. Again, unintentional Christmas books. This cowboy shows up, his name is Will, at her hotel that she now runs, like a motel that she inherited from her great aunt. And it's on Christmas Eve, and he shows up, and she helps him get out of like a murder charge with the police. And yeah, I'm only about an hour and a half into the audiobook, excuse me, but I'm absolutely loving it. The narration is great, the writing is great. This is very, very country, very, very Texas. And yeah, this is, you know, I love historical romance, but I find when I read too much of anything, like back to back, I need a break. And this has been a really nice palate cleanser from that. And I'm sure after I'm done this one, I'm going to need to get back into some historical romance. So the ebook that I'm currently reading, is Girl with Guitar by Caisey Quinn. This is the first book in the Kylie Ryan series. I believe this book is like right now for free on Amazon. So if you check the links below, I always leave links to all the books I talk about. Check it out. If anything, I definitely think it's free for the Kindle Unlimited. But this is about a girl who's only 18, so this would definitely be classified as a new adult novel. And she is trying to make it in Nashville, essentially. Her parents are both passed away, and she takes the last of her money and goes to Nashville and starts waitressing and does, you know, open mic nights, and the story goes from there. I'm only about 10% of the way through it right now. I just started it. They're not terribly long books. I think it's like around 250 pages. So I should get that done definitely this weekend. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. So that's it for the reading stuffs. Before I let you guys go, as per usual, you know I like showing you what I'm knitting on the weekends. And living in the most adorable bag. Now I know Christmas is over and I get that. But this is a completely, in my opinion, this is a Christmas is over bag. Because even though you have Santa and the reindeer, it's after Christmas. They're at the motel. They're swimming, right? They are suntanning. They are playing beach ball. They're playing shuffleboard. Is this not the most adorable bag you've ever seen? I just love it. I saw the fabric. I bought this like 2 years ago, and I saw the fabric, and I'm like, I have to own that. I own another bag, I think by the same fabric designer, because the drawings are the same. And it's Santa and the reindeer, and they're golfing. Like, I want them to do a whole series of like what Santa and the reindeer do after Christmas. This not make an adorable painting or something? Oh, I just love it. I would totally, absolutely have it up like on my wall. So what I'm knitting is actually another shawl, because I do love shawls, and I wanted to show you guys really quickly. Sorry, I've got cat fur all over everything. Everything I own is covered in cat fur. Those of you who have cats, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? We just can't have nice things. The shawl that I'm knitting is called Free Your Fade, and it's by Andrea Mowry. Now, those of you who've been watching me for a while, you might remember that big pink and orange shawl that I was doing called the Find Your Fade. This is by the same designer. So again, this is the Free Your Fade. And let me just show it to you. I love this woman's tattoos too, I might add. But anyway, there's the shawl, and you can see me in the picture. So it's a 3-color shawl. I'm still only on the first color. I'm actually hoping to get to the second color this afternoon because I'm almost on the first part. So here's what I have done so far. So it's not very long, but you can see that there's some, the holes in it. There's a little bit of lace work in it. So you do like 10 rows and then you do a row of lace. It actually goes this way. But isn't that purple color gorgeous? So the next color, I'm actually kind of doing this like almost monotone or monochromatic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. My Find Your Fade was bright. It's got pinks and oranges and greens and like every bright color. This I'm doing all in purples, but different shades of purple. So the next color is actually going to be a lighter purple, a much lighter purple. And it's going to have flecks of like different colors in it. And then the third color is going to be like a medium purple, somewhere between the two of them. And it's going to be more of a solid color. But this one, you can absolutely see the yarn is like, you know, very tonal. And it's very, very pretty. The colorway is called Grape of this one. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting more done on this. It's not very big yet, but I'm still getting there. So yeah, so that's it for my weekend, guys. I hope you guys are having a fabulous weekend. Please let me know in the comments below what you're reading this weekend or if you're doing anything fun. And until my next video, guys, take care and happy reading. Thanks for watching. Bye.